Uh, Struggle streaming. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and good evening. Now, I don't know what time of day it is for you, but for me, it's the good time of day. We're doing this a second time. This is number two. I screwed up on the initial one. I don't know what exactly is wrong, but I will troubleshoot and I will figure it out here shortly. I want to hop into this, and I want to jump. I'm just going to jump straight into this, and I want to get into it and go over all the different things that are going on with this Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing and how it actually applies towards the family in general, but the black family specifically. And that's kind of where I want to be at with this is discussing all the different aspects of this that actually impacts the family, the black family, and how things that we can learn from this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation that's going on, because there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to get around to as we're looking at it. And much of this that we're dealing with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard specifically revolves around what they've done, what they've been doing, how they've been going about it, and the impact that it's had, not just on Johnny Depp per se, but also on Amber Heard as well, because there's a level of pathology in looking at this and recognizing exactly what's going on between the two of them and how it is that it's impacting not just them, but how it is that it would impact families based off of things that have been going on with them. And there's some things that have been said that Johnny Depp has talked about. But I guess before we really hop into this, one of the things I want to do, I just want to run down some of the background on how it is that we actually got here right now, how and why we're here, what it is that's led us to this particular thing that we're dealing with right now with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and why it's actually significant. And I guess, you know what, I'm not even gonna say I guess. One of the things I really need to get across right now, and I need to make sure I'm going to state it explicitly. I'm going to state it for everyone that's out there explicitly. I'm going to make sure that everybody understands exactly where it is I'm coming from with this. This is not because a lot of times what happens, and I'm not going to say this is not let me preface it this way. Many times when you start to give a critique, or if you hold somebody to account, or you hold anyone, specifically black women, it comes across to them 9 times out of 10 that you are being extremely critical of them, and it doesn't come across as, here's an issue, let's identify the issue, let's resolve this issue, let's address this issue. And maybe it could be in the delivery. So let me preface it by this way: at no point is this any manner disrespect towards black women or women in general, or towards black men or men in general. This is strictly trying to look at a situation and diagnose and try to see exactly what it is that we can learn from it, so that as we move forward, we can make the necessary corrections so we don't repeat these type of things, and we can have some kind of continuity, some kind of cohesion within the community, specifically within the family, because that's what we're actually trying to get to. We're trying to get to the point where we have a cohesive family unit, and it's extremely important. Some people might think that it's not that important, but we know that by every metric, everything that we're able to measure today, when we look at it, we know that families, specifically children, do better in a 2-parent household where they're able to thrive. A loving 2-parent household is the ideal nurturing environment for children. It's an ideal nurturing environment in which to grow up. And if you don't have that dysfunction, the things that happen at that point are things that lend themselves to a high level of dysfunction for the adults growing up and the adults that are going to be dealing with the public going forward. So this is something, so in looking at this, I want to look at some of the things that have led us to where we're at right now. So obviously Johnny Depp has been married on several different occasions. The most recent one being obviously Amber Heard. And because one of the things that Amber Heard, she alleged, and I call it an allegation at this point, they've already gone through the divorce, but being in the family court system, there's a lot of things that happens within the family court system that lends itself to towards the family not being cohesive at all, and it lends itself towards the family being adversarial as well. And it's a very adversarial process that goes on with the family at this point. So in this situation, this is one of the things that as we get into this, as we start delving into it, we're going to notice and see how it is that these are things that can actually lend themselves to the dysfunction that we have within the family, and specifically the black family. Granted, Depp and Heard are not black, but a lot of things that happen to them are things that you're dealing with trauma previously that injects itself into their upcoming relationships, and a lot of things that were said from Johnny Depp on the stand, because he gave he was questioned direct. He had direct examinations yesterday, as well as cross examinations that have been extended into today as well. So obviously, law school, loving it, love the fact of going through it, and I love this nerdy legal stuff that goes on, because it helps to shed a light on when someone's up under oath on having to answer these questions, and up under both direct and cross examination, and hearing the answers and the things that came out of it, as it revealed a lot about his upbringing for the family, within the family, as well as the things that made it so that this man acted the way that he did and took the level of abuse that is alleged to have taken. So him and Amber Heard were in a relationship, and obviously they were married back in 2015 in a private ceremony. She filed for divorce in 2016, alleged that there was physical abuse. That allegation never went to court. So it never went to court. It was in the pleadings. And a lot of times why that never goes to court, because it is a tactic that attorneys will use in order to try and get what in Texas is called a disproportionate share of the marital estate. So Amber Heard was looking for and asking for $50,000 a month initially in her pleadings, or in the documents that she filed with the court. So she was asking for $50,000 a month for spousal support there in California. That didn't happen because in August 16th in 2016, they made an out-of-court settlement. So in mediation, they made a settlement. The allegations of abuse and everything else went away. So he settled for $7 million. So $7 million, let's call it amicable. Let's call it a split. Let's get us out of here. Everybody's done. 2017, divorce is finalized. The issue came up is that in 2018, there was an op-ed piece in the Washington Post where Amber Heard then resurfaces these allegations of abuse from Johnny Depp. And not only did she resurface these allegations of abuse from Johnny Depp, but now it also started to cost him work, and it cost him money. So he paid out $7 million in order to make the divorce to finalize the divorce and make everything go away. Now he is losing money in 2018 because of this op-ed. So he's, as a Pirates of the Caribbean and all these other things that he was involved in, starts to go away. So then because of that, he sues the Washington Post for defamation, or specifically libel. There's two types of defamation. Fundamentally, there's libel and slander. It's not really that. One deals with spoken word, and the other one deals with something that's written. Not really important, but he sued him for libel for this Washington Post for $50 million because it cost him a lot of work at this point. He ended up losing that. And not only did he lose, he ended up losing and had to pay the attorney's fees for the other side, which amounted to just over $800,000. So he paid $7 million. He's out of work because people don't want to hire him. They don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. He was on this movie that was supposed to be coming out, and they end up dropping him from all of these things because of it. Plus, he ends up losing the case, which cost him another $800,000. Let's round it off and say $1 million. So that's $8 million plus whatever he lost as far as work that goes in, as well as that during that time frame. So now Johnny Depp is out of approximately $8 million, and now he has lost the case. It was done in London. The courts there in London, or in England rather, the UK will not bring the case up for appeal. So now he's suing here in the United States as well. And now this time, instead of suing the Washington Post, he's actually suing Amber Heard for defamation. I'm not sure if he's alleging libel and slander. I haven't looked at the pleadings just yet to see all the things that just listening to the testimony going on today and yesterday was very enlightening for me in looking at a high profile court case. And it's very interesting at this point. The goal that he's having is trying to clear his name at this point, because now his name's been dragged through the mud. He's having difficulty finding work in Hollywood, which is where he works at, obviously, as an actor. And he's already out of $8 million because of the situation between him and Amber Heard, and losing the previous lawsuit. Not to mention however much money he's losing in revenue from not being able to work. So that's what bringing us up to speed. That's what gets us from where we were at then to where we're at right now. And this man, he is desperately trying to rehabilitate his image, and not just rehabilitate his image, but get back to, as a to put to rest or put to bed uh, the slant on his character. And I didn't know a whole lot about it until I started actually listening to the both the direct and the cross examinations that went on by Johnny Depp in this case, and it spoke a lot to what I will see, or not will see, but what I do see in a lot of mediations, and what a lot of people, a lot of attorneys will also express, specifically in family mediations here in Texas. So before I really jump into that, I want to, as a welcome in West Radamas. West Radamas, do you have anything that you want to add to that? That was just my synopsis on where we're at and trying to get us up to speed.
Yeah, I'm mobile today. But yeah, um, everything you said and then some, is just not the $8 million. It's more than that. That's the first and foremost, because Hollywood is his job. That is his Mickey Mouse. That's how he eats. That's how he feeds his family. And watching those, just watching the cross examination and direct examinations, and you have to see Miss Heard right there. Like, that's a very imposing figure. And it's not this issue right here is not like it's a people thing. It's a relationship thing, and it's very unfortunate because a lot of people go through abuse. It's very heartbreaking just to hear about just the stories of his parents, especially his mother. And to me, just like a quick little takeaway before we really start deep diving into it, it seems like he just married his mother. And just really unfortunate and very heartbreaking. And this is just a big, big, cautionary tale, and possibly a wake up call for other people. Because there's a couple questions in there I thought was very disingenuous of the cross examiner there, and where I was like, man, if that was to happen to me, I really wouldn't appreciate that question.
I definitely agree. I say there's a lot, but that's the nature that's the nature of the beast once you're up on the stand, though. So he's fighting to try and get his reputation back. And one of the things, because you mentioned it, and I wanted to really jump on it, because I was going to talk about it, because I was going to different lead up, but I like how you jump right into it. So let's the 800-pound elephant in the room, or 800-pound gorilla in the room, rather. Looking at this situation with Johnny Depp, one of the things he stated, so they as a in the direct examination specifically, one of the things that he talked about, and there's a bunch of clips that's there as well. So if you're looking for one of the clips that are there that's talking about it, I think it's testified. He's talking about his childhood struggles, and then in the last one, which was the violent behavior of Amber Heard, when he starts talking about that, he states directly the exact same thing that you stated, that essentially he recognized later on that he married his mother, right? And looking at that aspect of it, because he talked about his upbringing and how that impacted, because they were asking, well, in other words, why would you stay? And he was like, well, he didn't want to fail at the marriage. He's already had several marriages that have failed. He was trying to sit there and see if he can keep it together. He stayed because the behavior that was modeled for him from his father, because he talks about his father taking the abuse until his father left, and how and he was still had a relationship with his father even to this day. Initially, he was angry at his dad because of his dad leaving. He talks about incidents or issues of his dad and the corporal punishment that went on, where him getting whippings, and there were times when he didn't deserve the whipping. He's like, I didn't do this thing that mom saying I did, and he's going in, and he's talking to his dad about it, and is that his dad still went in there and did it, and then later on comes to find out that he didn't, that his son, that Johnny Depp, didn't do it. And his dad, he said, did something that his mom would never do. His dad came and apologized to him afterwards, said he was sorry, going through this whole process. And shortly thereafterwards, his dad ended up leaving. His dad went and packed all his stuff, left. And the impact that he talks about, what that made on him going forward, that he didn't want to have that going on within his relationship. So he stays, even when the relationship turns abusive, or this particular relationship turned abusive on him. And there's an audio recording that also came out where they talked about the abuse, and that Amber Heard actually she admitted to abuse that she abused Johnny Depp, and that she there's a 2020 or in 2020 there's phone recordings that were released where Heard admitting to hitting him and physically abusing him. She says, "I'm sorry that I didn't." She says, "Didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you, babe. You were not punched. I don't know what the motion of the actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you." So she was trying to make a distinction between punching and hitting, but she acknowledged that she physically assaulted him. And there's this thing within our culture where it's okay for women to physically and verbally assault men, but it's not okay for men to do the same. And that men are supposed to, because we're men, that you're supposed to just take it on the chin and you're supposed to absorb all the physical punishment that goes with it in that relationship as well. That's the sign of a real man, and as according to some of what we get in our cultures, as well as the verbal punishment. We teach this thing. I call it the one of the biggest lie we tell kids is sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And the reason why I call it the biggest lie is because words do hurt. There's a reason why we have psychiatrists and psychologists and all of these things that's something where people have counseling and therapy because words hurt. The difference between a physical strike and a verbal one is that the physical one leaves physical scars, physical marks. You can tell, you can show, you can point out just how deeply someone has cut you, hurt you, hit you, bruised you. Is visible. It's something you can see. The verbal stuff stays with you for a lifetime and nobody ever gets to see it. And young men are growing up always hearing about how men aren't needed or we don't need men. And it's one of those situations where trying to work it through and seeing exactly what it is that what we're going through as men. And it's just assumed, believe all women on a lot of these things. And I'm not saying that women are bad. And again, I'm tossing the caveat out here. We're talking about issues that are there that need to be addressed. And this is not intended to sit there to be a slight on women, specifically black women. This is not intended to be a slight, but this is an issue. And it's something that as you're listening to these cross-examinations and you're hearing him go through it, and he's talking about, he's trying to be coherent and is more cognitive. I guess I've never heard Johnny Depp, but listen to him talk about his childhood and his upbringing and the impact of what his mother did to him, and hearing about his sisters and everybody else, and that all of them having that same impact from their mother. And the lack of accountability there is what I really want to touch on and talk about today, is the fact that we talk a lot about and we identify a lot that black men you have this whole genre of movies and programs like Snapped and things like that, where we talk about men being the abusers, and it goes unrecognized the abuse that young men have growing up when they're coming up in these multiple single parent households with just a single mother, and how that impacts as well.
And agreed.
And I want to bring up we have ER. He's in the house with us again today. Did you have anything you want to add in here as I'm bringing you up on the panel here, ER? Did you have anything you want to add in?
Not just yet. I'm warming up.
Okay, I'll let you. I'll let you continue warming up. As a just chime in when you're ready. What's your Dominance? Did you have anything that you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, man, plenty. First and foremost, this question really grinded my gears, where this is to a point of disingenuality here. I know I just made up a word right there. But it was just very disingenuous. When the cross-examiner asked, why don't you just leave your abuser? Like, that is a very complicated question, because you have to understand that most abusers are master manipulators. And what they do is they always try to make it seem like it's your fault, or always try to put you at a deficit, with them, and then say, oh, all I have to do is just be perfect and then after that, hey, everything will go well. Plus, with Mr. Depp, he was trying to model behavior and things like that, and it just fell to pieces. And it fell into pieces because, like, when you see him testifying, it seems like you can see like the kid back in him came back out, and it just broke my heart because it's like, hey man, anybody's been in some kind of if anybody been in a manipulative relationship with a manipulative person, you can actually identify with that. And especially like with your parents, and just imagine you have a disability with the eye, and your parent, instead of encouraging you, like with the eye patch, they just started making fun of you. That's another thing. I was like, man, this is just, um, it shows you just the generational trauma that gets passed down to each generation instead of just heal, and healing, especially healing from families and things like that. Because when you talk about the nuclear family, it shouldn't children shouldn't be like, hey, I survived childhood, because most of people can probably identify. Some people can actually identify is, hey, I actually survived childhood. I did not get raised. I was just there and just made it to adulthood, and now I just have to figure out what I wanted to do. So I have to commend Mr. Depp for all the hard work that he put in, and once again, this is like a story is a woman can really make you or really break you. And in this story, it really broke him. And the reason why he just fell into that, because of, just reminded him of his mother. And for people out there talking about, oh, I wish I had money, I wish I had this, or people looking at all these celebrity women and talk about, oh my goodness, I wish I can just have one of those. Or, we have two prime examples of Miss Heard and Miss Pinkett Smith right here. It's like, hey, do you want to be married to these women? Otherwise either you're gonna get abused, or either way, you're gonna be destroying your whole career, what you actually worked for.
Yeah.
And I believe that those two women actually have a lot in common, as in competing against their husband. Because what Johnny did say is like, hey, when you use a term such as celebrity or public person, people, celebrity or Hollywood, people will come there and do anything for them to get famous. That's what he said, and it seems like Miss Heard tried to do anything to get famous, and that came at the expense of Mr. Depp here. And man, there's so many other things I want to unpack here. Especially I don't know SB, but did you see even ER? I don't know if y'all saw like just the facial expressions of Miss Heard whenever he was when he was giving his testimony, how many eye rolls and did you end up seeing all that?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact,
That definitely.
yeah, it was one of those situations when I watched it. It was very interesting to watch. Her reaction. As a matter of fact, before I do this, let me see. I can show you one right now. Let me share my screen here. I'll share one with you here. It was interesting for me watching it as I don't, like I said, I'm not, this is not trying to, again, the goal here is not trying to denigrate women. That's not the goal. It is I do want to highlight there is abuse on both sides, and that here's some of the abuse that you're looking at with a man who has quote unquote made it, right? Because according to him, he's done all these different jobs. He preferred the musician, blah, 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 as you listen to his testimony or whatever. But you can see the impact. And as he's telling this story, let me just share the screen real fast. I apologize. I started talking. Next thing you know, I stopped doing what I was doing. So let me hit the share button. Because like what you were talking about with watching her eye roll and watching her interaction with him at the time, it was very, very, very telling. And let's see, is this the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
one?
Well, here, let me go ahead and put out my disclaimer. I love women. All right. I'm not bashing on women. I'm just making observations. So I'm just saying observations. I love women. Y'all are the progenitors of society. Love you, love you, love you. It's just this particular one right here. I believe Johnny Depp or Mr. Depp, he did describe it as an entity or monster or demon,
Correct.
and
If
and you can see like a little bit of that coming out, just by some of the allegations that's being thrown there, and like with civil cases, particular defamation, the burden of proof is by preponderance of evidence. Some are clear convincing, but this particular one is going to be by preponderance of evidence. And what that means is more likely than not. Is 50%, is it 50%, 51% likely for this to happen. And this is very telling, especially with the tapes that came out. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back off to you, SB and ER.
Well, before anybody if you guys can see my screen, I'm sharing my screen right now. One of the things when you were talking about it was interesting for me.
I was sure that it was going to escalate into violence, and oftentimes it did. At times it did.
And when you say violence, what are you referring to specifically?
Miss Heard, in her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out. It could begin with a slap. It could begin with a shove. It could begin with, throwing a TV remote at my head. It could be throwing a glass of wine in my face. But all in all, it was just it was a constant. There was a built-in list of as I said, my personal experiences, which I gave to Miss Heard, those things were those facts were used against me.
I'm gonna stop it there, but as it was interesting watching as he's talking about the abuse, and this was for me. You talking about things that were triggering for me. This was triggering for me. This is a personal issue for me because I've been married, and the things that he's talking about, I've experienced, and in watching those things, and it was almost like reliving those same traumas all over again. That as a man, whenever around my home, I still have some of the marks because if I call the cops. And the cops would come in, they would look, and they would be like, yeah, well, you're okay. It's like, yeah, but she threw the remote at me, or she did it. And if it was me doing it, I'd be in handcuffs and going to jail right now. But she's allowed to sit there and physically assault me, and the only thing I'm supposed to do is man up and take it. That's essentially what I'm getting from the police officers at the time.
Facts.
So it's like a man getting physically assaulted, and this is one of the reasons I guess why I wanted to really talk about this is because I guess it does touch a little closer home for me, is that when I'm listening to him talk about these things and you're going through, okay, well, if I do this, I'm in cuffs and I'm going to jail. If she does it, it's okay and it's no issues, and you just need to man up, be a man, like take a few for the team, take a few strikes, but if you and make sure you stay yourself, keep composed, keep yourself as a level head and whatnot, so that you can still be there for your kids, and that you're not going to go to jail. Because if you do, best believe you will you'll spend at least a night in jail behind something along those lines. And I've seen it multiple times with other people as well. And it's just, I think it's something that does need to get brought to light, something that we need to talk about, as far as it's trauma that's there with him, but it's something that also extended back for him back when he was a child, and observing it was behavior that was modeled for him from his mom and from his dad, how long his dad sat in that type of relationship. And as a father going through it, I'll be honest with you, that was, as I listened to him talk about it, because that was the primary reason why I sat there and I took abuse was to make sure that I could be there for my kids, because I also know that the way that the family law system is structured, that if you anything that you do is there designed for you to have anything that you do is designed so that once you have that DV as a on your as a DV, that domestic violence case, now it makes it an uphill battle in court. You're out of the household, so now the mother is definitely the primary breadwinner. What's your interaction with the kids? That definitely goes down to zero, because now you're kept away from the kids because of domestic violence. And on top of that, the value or the monetization of the kids, where here's another thing that the triggering part for me about being a parent. The moment it became obvious for my ex that she wasn't getting custody of the kids, she left the country. She was just done. And so there's a monetary value. It's like, it makes me wonder, well, for some of these mothers, how much, because listen to him talk about his mother, and for him growing up, on whether or not his mother, she is sickly after a while. She tried to commit suicide and all these other things. I don't know if it's narcissistic attention-seeking behavior. I don't want to say I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I can't speak to that with any kind of validity. But listening to the testimony from him, like I said, and listening to him on the cross, and especially on the direct for me, it was very telling, because you normally don't get why questions on a cross-examination, but the direct examination, his attorney giving him those why questions and giving him the opportunity to actually speak and to be able to give that narration was very interesting and very telling for me.
Just to pick off that, I don't know if anybody studies, supreme mathematics and things like that. And there's every number corresponds with something. And one number in particular I can really think about is the number 8. And 8, which is the double cipher. Cipher is 0, which encompasses all numbers. Some people include in supreme mathematics, some people don't. So number 8 is build/destroy, because it's 2 ciphers, like 2 infinities and things like that. And this is a perfect case. It's either you're building or you destroying. And this in particular right here of Miss Heard over here, only thing that she knows is destruction. And just by the look on her face, I'm not saying look on her face, just like the stone face that she was giving, is just very unempathetic. And just to build into your personal anecdote, heck, even my personal anecdote to a reason here, just how we are taught to basically destroy ourselves because of if police see that when they come in and they're ignoring us, right? That means our feelings don't matter. Or if let's say we're getting in a situation, marriage, and we're saying that our feelings don't matter, and all these emotional scars that is happening to us, because as people of color, we already know that every time that the police are involved, it can end up being the loss of our life. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, every time that we go outside this door, you're home, there is a possibility that you're not coming back, and because of things, just how things can escalate and just blow up on us. So seeing how this manipulative tactics was keep on happening and reoccurring, and you mentioned earlier about how this system can be weaponized against us, and how valuable we are just off rip, which nobody tells us about. Of course, like in our 20s, they tell us it's like it's culturally, it's like you might want to start chasing women and things like that. But you have to understand that, hey, you're the most valuable piece of real estate because of what we have will cost money, and the government will actually profit off that. Just every piece of man, you are actually money.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about as well, because in the system, the child support system is a multi-billion-dollar a year system, and that system is geared it's geared so that both parties can be angry at each other. And why I say that is this: you're judged as a parent. If you're the non-custodial parent, normally that's the father. You're judged as a non-custodial parent on the value that you bring to the child. How good of a parent you are by, do you pay your child support? Not by how much money, how much time do you spend with the child? Not by how frequently do you interact with your child? Not by, are you instilling values in your child? If you're current on your child support, that's all that matters. And a lot of times, if the mother has had any kind of, and this is not as prevalent here, some other states like Florida, this is really bad, where if they've had any kind of public assistance, the government will take the money out of the child support, and the mother really doesn't see any of the child support. So the father might be paying almost $1,000 a month in child support, and the mother doesn't see any of it because she's received public assistance. And then she's talking about, I've never received a dime in child support, whereas it's gone in. The government says we're taking our cut out, which is essentially all of it. And the fathers she might get a couple $100. Like this deadbeat, he only pays a couple $100. And I say that because the more, like, I'll deal with a lot of mediations. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna jumble up some facts here because I can't be specific to any particular mediation that I've had. But one of the things that's interesting to me, because sometimes you'll get a mediation where you'll get one of the parties will be appearing video wise in an orange jumpsuit for the mediation. And I'll see it. I remember the first time I ever seen it, I walked in, I'll be honest with you, and I'm telling on myself, but this is a bad situation for me, because I had to learn not to prejudge things. Because when I seen that the father, the husband, was coming in from the orange jumpsuit, and my immediate thought was that he was making this more difficult, right? Normally, whenever you see somebody appearing, they're going to be in the orange jumpsuit. They have to appear from the sheriff's office, blah 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 blah. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is going to he's an abuser, blah 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 blah. And then this has this jumbled up case I'm going to give you, because I got to mix a couple different sets of facts, because I've had a couple of these words that's happened. But you're looking at it, and the wife / mother, she is angry and alleging DV, which actually happened. She got beat up. But what doesn't get told is that what led to somebody getting beat on, and I'm not saying that it's okay to beat on anybody. That's not what I'm trying to say as well. But if you ignore the effect, if you just look at the effect and you ignore the cause, you're kind of, to me, you're fighting a losing battle. But what led to it is that what didn't get told initially when stepping in is that this individual or individuals have decided that in order to get back at the husband, we're going to post not just compromising pictures, but something that was told in private, that the husband was molested as a child, and that as part of their story, they wanted to talk about it. That was what the hang up was in these couple different cases, but they wanted to make sure that they could tell their story, which is like, well, what does talking about that have to do with anything? But they posted it on Facebook to the group for everybody to see, as well as naming the family member that molested him as a child, and stated that that's why he's the way that he is today, and why why he's not a real man, because he was never a real man from childhood. And so those individuals being at work, getting this type of information, comes back, and instead of being apologetic, 10 toes down on it, not only 10 toes down on it, doubles down on it, and it begins to insult that individual again, right in their presence, while they're in the midst of their shame, which triggers somebody. and they're in an orange jumpsuit at that point for mediation because they couldn't control themselves. But all the rest, everything else is ignored, and and what you're looking at is a toxic, dysfunctional relationship. In these several cases that was actually just two, but in these two different cases that I had to mix together. But you're looking at dysfunctional relationships where women feel it's okay to go ahead and to dig in, and that you're a man and you should be able to take it and find out the deepest, darkest secrets. Like he was talking about, things that are being said and being used against you later on, right? So you open up, you show vulnerability, you're vulnerable, you tell you made something else vulnerable that you've told nobody else, i.e. in these cases that someone has been sexually assaulted as a child and never told anyone else. And just to get back at you, this information is either posted on Facebook or posted on Twitter or someplace else to say this individual was molested as a child, and naming family members that did it, and then further disparaging the individual, and then can't understand why that individual would lose it and physically assault the wife. And so it's one of those things that you see it, and you, for me, I get to see it, and I understand that my view is prejudiced, because if I'm dealing with 52% of marriages in a divorce, and I'm dealing with that half that are divorced, right? So I'm dealing with the failures. So I understand that there's a bias and implicit prejudice in my discussion on it when coming at it from that standpoint, that I'm dealing with failures in relationships, but looking at it, recognizing that some of the things are self-inflicted, and they're self-inflicted because of the behaviors that were modeled. Because this was, in this situation, it was something that happened to that individual as a child that came back up, similar to what Johnny Depp is talking about in his situation. There are things that happened as a child, and now that he's there, and why would you take that abuse? Why would you go through with that? Why wouldn't you walk away? Why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you? And he starts espousing on it, and now he has to be vulnerable in front of everybody, which is a very bad place to be, to me.
Yeah, man. I think that has to be very painful. Like, only I can imagine that, because
Go ahead. I'm sorry, ER.
Good, man. I was just sitting here listening, man. Wow. So I had my share of situations that made me really relate to this story. And I didn't know, and I think a lot of men don't know how much, and even the women don't know how much power that they can actually leverage if they wanted to. It actually freaked me out when, so you know that there's certain normalities or nomenclatures, whatever they call them today, to where you can't say, how old is a woman or if she's pregnant. You're kind of trained not to do that. Well, there were so many other things that I was learning that a young man, as I was raised in my mother's home, that she had already engineered me to. And once I got in a relationship with my wife, she was already engineered to have someone like myself. And so essentially what I saw was I was in over my head. And there were so many things that I think if my father was around, if the family structure was the way it's supposed to, a man could have told me, well, son, or, young man, you're going to face this, that, and the third. Don't freak out. This is normal. But listening to his situation, it just brought back so many memories. When I was placed on child support, it wasn't necessary. It took about a year or two for them to take it off and bring it to a zero balance. And I had to fight with everything I had. I gave up a few times. I just wanted to run. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But one thing I learned was that I could not run, and I had to address the situation. But no one had any sympathy at all. It was, you're the man, you're a man, you're a man. And it was like, wow. So just hearing this, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, it's so nice to have a discussion to bring out some of these issues.
I say, and you're not alone in that. I say, because, and I can tell you, in doing mediations and dealing with these in family courts, it's one of those situations where, so not just my personal anecdotal experience in talking about it and experiencing that, and listening to people who are around me that are dealing with it, but people that are just assigned in cases that I deal with, that is a very common theme, and it made it so that for me, because there's been times when I've talked with Western Domus offline, we've talked about some of these different cases or whatever, where I go in and it's taught me just go in with a blank slate. Don't make any assumptions. Yeah, you got the paperwork in front of you that tells you certain things, and you're looking at it and you're going like, sometimes you look at it like, man, why won't this dude just do X? And then all of a sudden you get in there and you start hearing both sides and you hear all of it. You go like, I was wrong on that, right? Or you look at it like, man, she's tripping. She needs to do da 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 da. And then you sit there, you get in there, it's like, oh no, this is what it as a, and no, she's actually not. And a lot of times, like I said, for men, so for a woman, she can sit there, she can talk about those things, and she can have, there's a support system that's built in to our society where women are able to talk about the different inequities and the different issues that they have. And there's all kind of women's support systems, shelters and things like that for women. And there's none of those things for men. There's zero for men. And as a man, you're supposed to just suck it up and take it. And I'm glad, like, as I hate saying like this, but when I'm watching the situation with Johnny Depp, it's exposing a lot of the issues that are in the family, that we're getting, that, like I said, you're engineered and she's engineered, and everybody comes up and there is like, this is what's expected. And as a man, you're supposed to just take this abuse. And you're looking at it like, no, as a man, I still have feelings. As a man, if you curse me out and throw something at me, if you hit me with something, I'm gonna, I've learned and I've been able to tap it down to be able to say, hey, not to hit a woman. But at the same time, every time it happens, if, like, say, if it was another man, there's comedians who make these jokes all the time. If it was another man, you're on it. But if it's because it's a woman and they know that you can't hit them, the level that they go to is not, is verbal, is denigrating, is you're like less than a man. And then on top of that, there's the physical abuse, like I said, when reading her words and the information, the evidence that came out that she was hitting this man. And then she's making a distinction like, oh no, baby, I don't know how it landed. I didn't punch you, but I did hit you, but I didn't punch you. But that's that level of distinction, is that's acceptable. And as a man, hey, it just happens. You just got to deal with it. And you don't, like, even like I said, the verbal stuff, that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt me. Like I said, I realized when I told my kids that is not true, right? Don't ever believe that. The difference between a physical strike and a verbal strike is that a physical strike leaves a mark, and I can show you that, right? Whether it's a weld or you got a whipping, like when I got whipping, you got a weld, and if it goes too far, unfortunately, I never got bruises or anything like that. My parents never went that far, but if you did, you better show that. If there's a broken bone or something like that, if you're in a football game and you hurt, that stuff you can show. But the verbal stuff, you never get to see it. But we're constantly telling people that sticks and stones may break your bones, or telling the kids, and we're teaching them and we're raising them up this way. And that stuff hurts. And you can see the lasting impact and the lasting marks of it in Johnny Depp and watching him in this case with Amber Heard. And for me, like I said, I guess I'm strangely watching the train wreck, because it's something I see on a regular basis. And it's like, wow, looking at a celebrity go through it's the exact same thing. And it was just very telling, especially for men being able to, I thought it was a good time to be able to sit down and be able to talk about these things that are actually affecting men, but we're just told just to suck it up and deal with it. Right.
Yeah, indeed. And this is another lesson, is just because you have money doesn't mean you actually get what you want. And even like different relationship types, clearly this was a hypergamous relationship, where Depp, he pretty much paid for everything. And you see how whenever you do get married, things always flip. It's like, hey, you think you might have a prenup and all this other good stuff. You still want to see things work, even though that you might have all these safeguards and safe measures in place. Soon as you say I do, all the chips are going to fall in a woman's favor. And especially like with the to touch on another thing, like with the DV cases, there's rarely, very rarely, there is a self-defense against a woman, unless she's brandishing like a weapon or something like that, because it's very ingrained in the fabric of the of our country that women are are the victims. You know, just like how you say that, hey, there's always a women's shelter. Matter of fact, when we're trying to get on public assistance, it's mostly for women, but there's very rarely there's things for men after they get divorced. Because remember, most time, hey, if you have a house, okay, the house go with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So normally the man ends up, okay, homeless. You know, hey, if he doesn't have family or anything like that, so it's very rarely they get those kind of opportunities.
And that's why I think it's very important to talk about it now, because I'm very pro black family. I want to see the black family succeed, and unfortunately, there's a lot of generational trauma that we have within the family, and there's times when we talked about young Pharaoh the last time, and that's things dealing with men, and we own up for the things that we've done as that men, and being critiqued as a man is normal in society. We can talk about men all day and things that we do as men all day, and I keep on having to come back and make the statement that I'm not bashing women or black women specifically, but these are issues that we have that, yet the same way we could talk about a young Pharaoh or other young men like YNW Melly or someone else, and the issues and that trauma that comes up that we have, addressing that with women. I always feel the need to make sure I state I'm not bashing women. I'm not talking down on women. However, if we're talking about accountability for men, there's also an accountability for women. And in this situation, this will be an accountability for women within our families to say, look, the same way that men like a young Pharaoh could do something like to Golden, God, I just lost her name, Golden Beauty. Same way and we can sit there and we can recognize and we can empathize and we can jump on that. Here's a situation where you're looking at it within the family, a man who wants to be he wants to be a good parent, why would a man sit there and stick around? Because he wants to be a father. He wants to be a good father, and he knows how that works. And let me read this this chat here. It says, "Lawyer show ? Undiagnosed or misdiagnosed issues. Pity party. He-Man woman haters club. Solution oriented insights on society woes. Came in late, trying to see what kind of show it is." All right, thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Appreciate the comment. But yeah, but looking at it in that light, is a situation where being able to talk about it or have it where now it's okay, and to show that, hey, there's some issues that need to be addressed on both sides. And this was one where our sisters, specifically because our sisters are the keepers of culture, and in this case, it's not a sister, it's a white woman, it's misheard, but watching that and seeing just the continuing on and that just denigration within the family structure. I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way, only because it's a little. Well, I'm not gonna say a little. There's a lot of that for me that I'm listening to. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of personal stuff in there. But and then also looking at cases I've had to deal with, there's a lot of stuff there as well. So
I can imagine like this has to be some form of therapy for Johnny Depp, because he's been holding that secret in, especially. I don't know how forthcoming he is. I know I have seen him on late night talk shows giving interviews, and I have seen him give interviews every now and then. I can imagine this has to be some form of therapy, because you've been holding the secret, and it seems like he's doing a lot of self-discovery doing this. And just to answer Mr. Taylor's comment, how I see every show, and every time I do, when I do talk to SB and ER now, I see these things as a teaching. It's like, hey, these are the lessons. This is what's happening, or this is what's alleging that's happening, and I try to synthesize from that. Hey, there's always an underlying lesson here, and it's not like a pity party when it's actual active things that actually happens in the culture. This is just not men dominated things or women dominated things, or this is not hey, we're hating on women. No, how can you truly hate on anything? You just can't truly hate anything if you're trying to critique it and trying to make it better.
Yeah.
And undiagnosed or misdiagnosed issues, like we're not psychologists or psychiatrists or therapists. Only thing that we can say is like, based off my experience, this is what this is.
Yeah.
And Lawyers Show, we do try to take some type of legal perspective on things because of that's where our specialty is in. That's where my specialty is in.
Exactly.
But yes, it's always solution oriented. Always solution oriented, and then things that we can synthesize. Yes, is going to be a sounding board in a safe place. Because of how SB said earlier. Women, we have Red Table Talk, The View. You can see how many women shows that they're able to talk about their issues, and I don't know if you actually watch TV or just check out the ratings and views. Actual TV ratings have actually gone down, like way down. These kind of shows are no longer pulling those kind of ratings anymore, and now they're coming into YouTube channels. And since they're now coming in YouTube channels and they're looking for alternative media right now, which is a good thing. So therefore now we can get these independent and anecdotal experiences, such as what ER went through, such as what SB went through, what I went through, and we can actually weave this tapestry and saying like, hey, y'all went through this. Oh, I went through this too, because there's always was like a men code of silence where we're not able to talk about certain things, such as an abuse or manipulation tactic and things like that. And some people are still scared to really speak about it. I know for a fact, a couple of friends of mine, it seemed like they're just scared. Like, hey, every time that that their woman calls, they're like, or hey, we might be having a guy's night out, and their wife calls, they start acting different. And I don't know if anybody has done that, where they just start acting different whenever their significant other starts calling. It's like, okay, well, you start taking a mental note. This is all about just trying to synthesize some type of lesson from this, just to answer your comment.
Got it. As I appreciate you addressing it, because for me, I'm looking at it as, like you said, it's a space in which we can talk about these issues that need to be addressed, and not only just talk about those issues, but like when you talk about solution oriented, one of the things I always like to emphasize, it requires that I'm always trying to figure out how do we get the next generation to realize that a lot of it has to do with selection, right? So we're being taught a lot of times, or we're being told a lot of times, that just look for women that are just bad looking. Oh, she hot, she this, she that, but the underlying qualities of her, we're not taught. You're taught to look at guys who are quote unquote successful and have a certain height or whatever, and we're not looking at the qualities and what that's going to do for our families. And I think that there's a lot of that as you're going through, like one of the things that ER's talked about, and I really appreciate it because, like he said, there's a lot of programming. Both of us are programmed walking into it. Both the man and the woman are programmed walking into a relationship, and there's certain expectations. And if I'm being honest, the hypergamous portion of it, a lot of that I'm okay with. I don't know, ER, you mentioned that you're married as well, but for me, I was okay with that. I took pride in being able to provide for my family. That was but the other stuff that went with it, the abuse, that was the part that really, it really bothered me to an extent. Did you have anything that you wanted to add with that, ER? Oh, it looks like you're on twice.
We're about to say we got ER on camera over here, man.
Oh, got him. Let me take the one with you on camera off. Let me just go to the one with you off camera. There we go. Can you hear me still, ER? I guess not.
Whoa.
I hear you
Anywho,
loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to know, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Um, I got a lot to add, but I'm gonna keep it very brief. And I'm wondering, as you look back and you just pick any random state and you just go into the inner cities. There's the mom working hard, trying to put food on the table. A lot of times the father's not there for, any number of reasons. But I'm wondering, as we're being raised by these black women, um, or women in general, and I'm gonna just be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff, and I've never seen this before until I got older and I started to realize how serious life was. I realized there's a lot of things I could not say. And there is a fear that is, I believe, um, almost every man have almost, it's like, even if you didn't do nothing, sometime when the lights come on behind you and it's the police, it's like, oh, well, what did I do? There's just that little bit of, uh-oh, even though, there's nothing to worry about. It's just still that little, uh-oh, hopefully I wasn't going too fast. But I kind of feel whenever I mention something that I want to make better in my relationship, or the social fabric between men and women, it's almost like we have to put a disclaimer out. We have to say, I don't mean any harm. I'm not trying to say anything, whether we're talking about, things around the house, the children, working out, home decor, whatever it is. And I was just wondering, is it the mothers that instill that in us when we're children, to sort of have that fear, never to speak in a certain, maybe trusting way about women? Or is that just something we sort of just pick up from society? That's what I was wondering.
For me, if I'm understanding you correctly on this, I don't know, there's no nice way to say this, so let me just say it the way it is. I'm getting ready to put my foot in my mouth. I think that for the most part, I think a lot of that does come from our mothers, right? And the reason why I say that, and it's not trying to disparage mothers, or love my mother to death, but our mothers are the first teachers that we have. They're the keepers of culture, and in many cases, especially in the previous generations coming up, even to the day, there is an overabundance, specifically within the Black communities or within our community, that single mother households are there. And there's two sisters that I one of them, she's an ancestor, the other's an elder, but Shahrazad Ali, and there's had her name and I just lost it. She's a doctor, she's a psychiatrist. She just recently passed. I shouldn't say recently, she passed around 5 years ago. God dog it.
Is it Dr. Julia Hill?
Not Dr. Hill. But both of these sisters, let me look up I can tell you exactly who she is. Give me a moment here.
And while you're doing that, just for me to give my 2 cents in.
Hey, Francis Cress Welsing, but go ahead. I'll let you.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
No. As I say, so those sisters, one of the things that they point out is that within the family, there's certain things that are taught. And Shahrazad Ali, in her book, one of the things that she talked about is a lot of the language that goes on in the household, such as you don't need a man, or men are good for nothing. And if you're a little boy and you're hearing this, your self-esteem and self-worth is going down, right? That you're not really needed within the family. You can do bad she can do bad all by herself. You never tell a man all of your stuff, or never, all of these are things that a lot of mothers, I've had aunties that have said these type of things to my cousins, and I've heard these things. And if you're a daughter, you grow up and that's like, yeah, that's what I need to emulate, and that's what I need to get to. And if you're a young man, you're hearing that, and you're hearing that our women don't really value us the same way that we're being taught to hold our mothers on pedestals. And there's another Jawanza Junk. I keep on butchering his last name. I'll put a link to his channel down below. But he talks about the war on young black men. And so as young black men are getting these things and the attack that's constantly on us, we like I said, that fear is being instilled in us in the household because we're mothers are I say they how does it go? They love their sons, but they raise their daughters. And what they're saying is that there's a inherent fear of what happens to young black men, so they pamper and they try to shield black boys to an extent, while at the same time giving these these contradictory messages, but not allowing you to do the things as like you're too weak, you're inept, you're this, you're that, but then at the same time you are the man of the house. So there's this contradictory message that goes on. And for daughters, they hold daughters and they make sure that daughters are held accountable. There's this thing within the community, and when you start to look at a lot of these things, it's like by the time you get older, there's this level of reverence that you have for women, and at the same time not one as they're weaker, you got to endure the abuse. It's almost like it's your fault anyway because you're a man, and there's this whole process that goes on. I do put a lot of that, if I'm being honest, I do put a lot of that on our sisters, but I think that it's something that we can correct, but you have to want to correct it, if that makes any sense. And you're going to say something in Western, so I apologize for stepping on you.
Oh, no apology needed, fams. Man, just to rewind back, like a lot of people are walking on eggshells, like in their relationships, in their marriage, and it's unfortunate. It is taught because it's taught that our feelings don't matter, and that's being instilled in us, and for us just to say, "Hey, we made it. Our mom did the best that she could." That's the reason why we try to hold her into a deification, as in God, like this is my creator. At least I made it, and allow me to keep on putting her on that pedestal. The thing about it is this, and I think this is where most relationships fail, or at least my personal theory, is women are the keepers of first teachers and keepers of culture, and that is the most let's just say, I don't want to call it manipulative, but one of the most important things, because what happens is we are the keeper of the secret, right? And the secret of what is order, right? And with order, it takes force for order. So thus every year, and that's the reason why we always say, well, back in my day, this happened because of that's what instilled, but the next generation coming up underneath us, those mothers put this programming in these in these children, and then that's what they're going to enforce of these group of men, because the culture is getting placed into the kids. And since we are the keeper of force, we have a responsibility to maintain that order. And just in this climate here, we're unable to maintain that order. I'm not talking about DV cases or anything like that. It's just it's been the system is giving, let's just say, they're rewarding. It's just rewarding people to buck the order in your own house, because these are the rules here. Okay, women can do whatever they want to do, and no matter what, it's like, these may be the rules, defined rules in my house, but at the end of the day, the woman can, or another person can say, of course, not another man can come to your house and tell you what to do, but let's say a woman comes in and say, "Oh, he hit me," or this is this, and that can actually upset the apple carton. So they originally just have the trump card on us, and that's the reason why I believe where our relationships are a very funny thing. Like tying into Johnny Depp, it's like, that was his house. He tried to record conversations, and he still couldn't get anything done.
Well, he did record conversations. That was one of the things that was interesting, because he talked about the fact that in his testimony, as he was talking about it, he said that it started off with, and this is one of those, And as I've been through therapy before and that type of deal. So in talking to
Me too.
a psychiatrist, or not psychiatrist, a psychologist, about being gaslit, right? So, and for me, listening to him talk about it, it was like he was talking about being gaslit, because anytime that you feel that you need to record a conversation that you're having with somebody just to prove what it is, because in his testimony and what came out between the two of them is that he felt that he needs to start recording the conversations, and he told her he was recording, and then she started recording but wouldn't tell him. But he felt that he needed to record conversations because to show her what it was that's being said the next day, how she talked to him the next day, because that Heather, the next day when they talk about it, a lot of times what happens, and when you're in a mediation, because you'll hear this, it's kind of funny, because you can recognize somebody being gaslit, is that, no, I didn't say that. No, you must have heard that wrong. That wasn't said at all. And the person's like, well, no, we talked about, no, you said, wait, didn't, and then now they're starting to jog in their mind, like maybe I didn't hear that right. So now he feels he needs to record a conversation that he's having with his wife. I'm not saying she's narcissistic, but that is classical narcissistic traits when you've been gaslit, to feel the need to record or to preserve the conversation for posterity, that you can't just have a normal conversation anymore, that now you need to have this conversation. It needs to be recorded. That way, when it comes over later, it's like, this was said or that was said, or we agreed to this or didn't agree to that. And then next thing you know, you're sitting there, it's like, well, I didn't say that at all. Wait a minute. Now you go back. Now you have to go back to the recording. And even if you play the recording for that individual, they're like, oh, man, you're weak for that. Why would you're not even a real man. A real man wouldn't need to record that. He would just, so that level of degradation that you would get in that narcissistic behavior is just tenfold. And listening to him talk about it, when he said that, is this the one where he stated, yes, this was the one where he actually started talking about the need to record. And I think that comes along. I was going to think that's at the 8-minute mark, but he talks about the need to record his conversations. I thought that was very telling. The fact that he felt that he needed to record a conversation. It was very narcissistic. It's narcissistic traits that you're observing at that point. I guess that's it. But
I'm mobile, so just that thought in your head, how toxic is that when you have to think in yourself, like, hey, I need to start recording these conversations, because if I do not record these conversations, because think about all that self-doubt, you're thinking that, hey, I may be crazy, because I know for a fact that me personally, I have gone through that. And I believe that he might be like a microcosm of some of these of some relationships, especially toxic relationships. And I believe that I think everybody that has been in a messy situation can actually take something from that. It's like, hey, this is what happens, and I think that we as men need to talk more about these issues, so therefore that we can stay on code, because women, they stay on code. Like, don't get me wrong, certain things, talking about, hey, what happened to the sisterhood, things like that. Some things have survived the breakdown of the sisterhood, and they know how to stay on code, and we don't, because we're very lonely creatures.
Well, I think that's my takeaway in watching this and seeing it, is that I think that we need to stop being as lonely creatures, and we need to start supporting each other, specifically Black men. We need to really start supporting each other better, is one thing that came out of this for me. Two, what came out of this for me is that we need to start doing better as far as selecting mates. Because when he started talking about how he met her and how he became attracted to her and everything else, it was all physical. There was nothing really substantive in his, when he described him meeting Amber Heard and them getting together. There was nothing really substantive in that interaction between the two of them. So the selection process was off. So those are my two key takeaways when listening to this and transcribing or pulling this over and analogizing it for the relationship specifically for Black men and Black women, is that we as Black men need to start, not just, I don't want us to say stick together, but we need to start supporting each other better. And that's something that I think we not just in business, but how's your brother doing? How's everybody? How are we doing as Black men? Because we do go through a lot, and I think it's something where men in general, but specifically for Black men, because we have a lot of trauma that's come through, and there's a lot of things especially for our sisters, believing that the feminist movement is for them, when it was, as a Black women have never had to worry about getting a job in the workplace or their men allowing them to get a job in the workplace. That's something that's a particularly and peculiarly my tongue's not working, peculiarly white woman issue, and not being able to work, or their man keeping them from working. For us, that has never been the case for us. Not here in America, it hasn't been. And trying to get equal rights within the home, that's something that's also hasn't really been an issue for Black women traditionally. White women, yes. Black women, no. So that support for Black men is something that we need to have, understanding that the issues that white people are having are not the same issues that we're having as far as the struggles and strifes that they have, but then also so supporting each other, and then secondarily making sure, and I just drew a complete
one thing I saw, I was listening to Mr. Depp and his testimony, and one thing I noticed was the lack of self-love, and do for self, and the casket that he was actually buried in. Because whenever he steps outside, oh my goodness, that's Johnny Depp, right? Mm-hmm. People are worshiping this guy, like Pirates of the Caribbean, as Edward Scissorhands, all his classic movies. Hey, if he would step on any Comic-Con, he is the man. But whenever he steps right back in his house, he's getting, wine spit at him and getting abused, and where like he had to step on eggshells in his own home, and so I'm thinking, I say, all right, so where's his self-maintenance? Hey, whenever he wants to have a good time, or where's his place of solace? Where's his happy place?
Definitely not at home.
I wanted to add something too.
Go for it.
I remember I was coming home from, I had an overseas trip, and I heard some sisters were talking about where they wanted to travel, and they asked my opinion, and I said, yeah, this place is nice, and this place. And most of the places that I said around the world, they thought was nice as well, but they didn't like the law. And it never occurred to me until just now, possibly why they don't like the law. And I thought it might have been the religion, or it might have been the food. But the reality was the sisters didn't like the fact that the, I guess, ratio of benefits were not in the favor of women. And it might sound stupid, like, oh, well, why is that important? It was important. It was because I don't want to say subconsciously, but without even thinking, it seemed the woman knew that place would not benefit me. And as a man, I'm just thinking, tourism, I'm thinking keepsakes, I'm thinking having fun. I'm not even thinking the way she's thinking. And again, she's thinking about, what am I getting out of this? And I feel that's kind of the way we come into a marriage. How am I going to look with her on my arm? How is everybody going to see us? And she's thinking, what am I going to build in or out of him? You dig what I'm saying? And it as I said, as I'm thinking again, as men, we have to actually really, really, really start to sit back. And I remember my mom used to tell me this, to read Proverbs 31 and see what the mom was telling the son, who was a king, and what she did not want him to get wrapped up in, which would stop him from being a good ruler to the people, which was, a lazy woman in Proverbs 31, or a woman who maybe want to drink a little bit more than usual. And I said that just to say this simply, it this has been such a learning experience for me. And when you said self-love, I think as men, we're not necessarily taught to love ourselves. Everything that we uh, earn, everything that we can muster must be to, our woman. And there's nothing wrong with giving the woman the world and more. But we have to love ourselves a little bit more than what we've been doing, maybe a lot more.
I would agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
And matter of fact, we need to actually start defining what self-love is. Because like women, our counterparts, they have spa days, they have girls trips, they have the whole gambit of things, and and that's by design, because of they're takers by nature, like, and they're supposed to take and nest, and us, we provide by nature. And it's just us. It's just now, since we're at the time we're in 2022. This is not 1950s, not the 1800s anymore. It's time for us to come with the times now. Is, hey, we need to start educating ourselves here on the law before anybody gets married, or at least the man. Hey, go consult a family attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you do it. Make sure you're protecting yourself, because these women are already known. I remember growing up, girls talking about, hey, where's my child support? That was told to me, and all that good stuff. All right, hold on.
Well, I'll fill in while you're talking about just let me know when you get back. But it's interesting to me, like when you start dealing with that aspect of it, of where's my child support, self-love, and all those different things, that a lot of times, and it's interesting that we as men, we love giving, we enjoy giving, we enjoy providing for others, self-sacrifice, self-this, self-that, but the self-love portion of it is not something that comes, I don't know if it comes hard to us because of how we were brought up, but that's something where it's like, just relax a little bit, enjoy a little bit of this, enjoy a little bit of that. It's not something that, at least for me, is a very hard thing for me to do. If I'm not working or if I'm not being productive, I don't feel right. And so trying to get to that point of that, what you were talking about here initially, ER, about the self-love, and what Westradamus also alluded to, that's something that a lot of times I don't feel right just taking time for myself. And it's like trying to get to that point within my mind that that's okay. It's okay to take a little time for yourself. It's okay to, and I want to go back to something you talked about earlier as well, because you talked about that level of fear that you have. And I realized, because I was thinking about it as we were talking and everything. And I realized a lot of, like, even myself, and what we've been talking about it, on trying to censor myself as far as how I want to state things to make sure that women, because I have a lot of female family members, my mother, my daughters, my aunts, cousins or whatnot. And a lot of times what I'll get a call, or they'll look at something, they go like, oh, well, that's a good place. That's a safe space for men. Oh, look at what you guys are talking. It's this really patronizing tone that goes with it. And this thought process of, oh, I guess you guys are having a men bash or a woman bashing time. And it's like, no, it's not about bashing women. It's talking about an issue. If I'm talking about YNW Melly, nobody goes, oh, you're having a man bashing time, right? If I'm talking about any other topics that we have, it's not you're having a man bashing time. But it's only when you talk about something that happened with women, it's a woman bashing time. And I recognize, and thinking about it as we've been listening to you guys talk about the various things that brought back to mind, that might be one of the reasons why I gave all the different caveats, instead of me just saying this is what it is and going forward, just knowing that there's going to be a lot of pushback later on that I'm going to have after I do this stream from female family members that I love and respect. So yeah, I guess and that's not just from back in the day. That's also even now. So I guess I'm going to have to change my behavior.
One thing I always want to ask is, like, hey, why are men, every time that we do speak, we are the most dissected? And then whenever we feel a certain way, like when we look at like a Cam Newton, that's the way that he personally feels, and that's what he personally wants. That's his preference. And he's being dissected and saying like, hey, it's wrong for him to feel that way. or it's hard for him to have a critique that way. But when somebody else of another or a different gender was to have that as a take about their preferences, like, oh, I want a high value man, nothing's being said about that. They're not being dissected, and it's like, oh, okay, this is just accepted, So why can't, when we have our takes and our opinions, why do we have to defend just for us just to be heard?
Yeah.
Because I think that's really that's ingrained in our society. It's like, hey, we just don't matter. It's like, hey, shut up and pay, and that's it.
Very much so.
I yield the floor.
Now, I'm gonna say, because I'm getting ready we're at the 9 o'clock hour, so I'm on our end. So I'm gonna end up closing this down. Did you have anything you want to add for us, ER, before I take us out of here?
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you. I just gotta say this. I remember when I used to go to church and I would sit down, and I always wanted to raise my hand to answer the questions. And one of the deacons told me, he said, "You are just full with so much energy and you got so much good things to say." He said, "But I'm telling you, when you listen a little bit more," he said, "you're going to take in more." And tonight, I just really enjoyed listening, even taking a little bit of notes. I got a little card here. I wrote some things down that I wanted to do a little bit more research on. And I want to thank y'all for inviting me up here. You guys are phenomenal. And I just want to say thank you to the chat and everybody that's listening in. I've had an amazing time.
Thank you very much for showing up. You're welcome up here anytime at all. Anytime that you want to come on up, you're welcome. And you have anything you want to take us out with as well, Westradamus, before I call it a night?
Yes. Before we do call it a night, please like, share, subscribe, comment, tune in, tap in, come be a part of the family, be a part of the conversation. With that being said, may you find peace in your life. May God drive you, and please, without risk in your life, there is nothing you can obtain. So you have to risk everything in order for you to get something. It's like, hey, if you're trying to risk, you have to be risked to be rejected in order for you to be accepted, right? You have to risk things. So make sure that, hey, if you're on the edge and you're trying to risk something, go get it, and so therefore you can start achieving your dreams. Because that's one thing with all people. We're always told things that we can't do, but we're rarely ever told things that we can do. So hey, let your light shine. Let your light shine the brightest. Hey, I love you. If nobody has told you that, and please reach out to me. The Westradamus on Instagram, and if you're trying to hold of me, and after that, here, let's get this thing in.
I hear you. All right, and with that being said, I'm going to repeat and echo what Westradamus just said. Love you. I know I didn't tell you guys earlier, and I hope that your day is going great, and may you always, always, always have peace in your life. And with that, we are out. You guys have a good one. Be blessed.